Good morning, and thanks for joining us with this conference. We're going to be talking today about how the Department of Defense moved to Kubernetes and Istio. We have 20 minutes, so we're going to try to keep it brief. Want to make sure we give you as much content as we can. You're going to see how we, within 18 months, moved to Kubernetes in the DoD, really trying to ensure we don't get locked into a cloud provider or to a platform. What's very important for us was to pick an open source stack, so we picked Kubernetes and containers. We created two teams to bring enterprise services, and I think that's really a critical lesson learned there to ensure that teams understand the importance of enterprise services and being able to bring value at scale. We created Cloud One, which is our cloud office that brings access to Amazon and Azure. And then we have Platform One, that's our DevSecOps teams that brings a DevSecOps managed stack and runs the enterprise services. One of the key delivery of that team was the repo of containers. We centrally created containers DoD-wide, so teams, whether it's a commercial product or whether it's an open source solution, can be accredited and approved DoD-wide at all classification levels on the Iron Bank. That's the name of the repo. Everything is open source, so if you want to check it out, you'll see we have links in the presentation for you to go and check it out. Really important for us to be able to bring that as an enterprise capability, so teams don't have to build their own stack from scratch, and be able to instantiate a DevSecOps environment with a push-button deployment was critical for us, and that's what enabled us to succeed and move fast. What's also very important is the concept of a continuous authority to operate, a continuous ATO, where we bring the ability to release software continuously multiple times a day and bake in the cyber stack into the environment and the platform. We call that the Sidecar Container Security Stack, SCSS. That's really a fancy term to talk about behavior detection and zero trust down to the container level. And so that's how we really enforce baked in security, and that's how we get reciprocity of the stack being deployed. Here's the link to our website. You can see here on the software.af.mil/dsop/document page, you're going to find the link to the repo with the source code of everything we do in DevOps, DevSecOps. You're going to see links to training, videos, and really a detailed architecture information on how we design the stack and how we operate the DevSecOps environment. So I recommend people go and check it out, because that's really where we share everything. We also share multiple events. We have multiple engagements with industry, including one tomorrow at 1 p.m. with an Ask Me Anything session where anyone can come and ask questions. So if you have more questions about the session today, feel free to join tomorrow at 1 p.m. The links are on the website under the event section of the website. What's also always important for us to explain is why did we pick Kubernetes and containers? The first aspect was vendor lock-in, so we can run on any cloud, any on-premise environment. We run Kubernetes on jets. We run Kubernetes on the weapon system itself, all the way to cloud and edge use cases. So very important to be abstracted and to have that orchestration stack agnostic to the environment. Additionally, containers are mutable, so we can centrally accredit them, scan them, understand what's running on those containers, and that makes it kind of a bunch of Lego blocks that can be swapped and provide kind of adaptability and flexibility to deploy new tools or try new things rapidly, while having that concept of self-healing and resiliency and baked-in security, like we talked about with a sidecar stack, which really brings zero trust baked into the stack. Containers also auto-scale, so that's great for management of load and CPU and memory. They will scale up and down based on use. And again, completely automated. We use infrastructure as code to be able to orchestrate the stack and really automate the deployment of the IAC and the DevSecOps environment with a push button deployment. So a very easy push button installation for the teams to instantiate a DevSecOps environment. When you think of the complexity of a DevSecOps stack and you see all these capabilities, it's just one example. We have 170 plus options, but in this case, this is really just a few options for one use case. You can already tell that without containers, updating all these capabilities as VMs will be very painful. And so we picked Kubernetes and containers. So everything you see is containerized. All these build tools, test suites, scanning tools, Git repos, and the CI/CD tools. Everything runs as containers, and we can self-update across all environments, across all classification levels. That really enables us to move at a pace of relevance, and that's really critical for the DoD. Very important to understand the concept of layers, so we can avoid reinventing the wheel. Application teams pretty much inherit 90% of the NIST cybersecurity framework by using both the infrastructure stack, whether it's a FedRAMP cloud or whether it's on-premise, an on-premise environment, or a platform, whether it's the Kubernetes stack, the CI/CD pipeline with continuous integration, continuous delivery, and the service mesh. So for people that don't know what a service mesh is, it's really what manages the east and west traffic between your containers, all the communication layer across your stack. That enables us to inject the sidecar stack and be able to do zero trust, so deny all by default, a mutual TLS tunneling across the stack. So strong identities per service, so we can whitelist the traffic and make sure that only container A can talk to B and not to C if we don't want it to talk to C, and mitigate and reduce the attack surface of the stack for cyber reasons. That really enables the application team to focus on the 10% left in cyber, inheriting all the hardening and security that we bring on top of Platform One and Cloud One. A lot of people, wonder how we coordinate all that. Really, we partnered with all the different teams between the startups, the big primes, the other agencies outside of DoD, and all the software teams and program offices in DoD, and we try to enable them to reuse the code, reuse the Lego blocks, the containers, and not reinvent the wheel, and really have a push button deployment. So they get a custom deployment. So it's not a one size fits all. They can pick which tool they want to use. They can swap Git repos. They can swap CI/CD pipelines. We support 16 programming languages, 23 databases, and so that's important for teams to be able to do that. We're kind of global, obviously, so we're spread across the U.S., and each team can have a different focus in terms of their mission software being developed. And so between space, between jets, between bombers, between business systems, cyber offense, defense, we spread among the team, and that's very efficient. The key aspect of Platform One was to bring enterprise services. So we stood up multiple tools, so teams don't have to reinvent the wheel. The first one was really Repo One, which is a central repo of containers that has all the source code, all the infrastructure as code, all the Kubernetes distributions we're supporting. We have quite a few distributions that we support. So that's really enabling us to give access to OpenShift, to Data2IQ Convoy, to VMware, TKG, to Oracle, to Rancher, and others. So we can really have a turnkey deployment already hardened and secure, but provide options to teams. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Very important that if you build an enterprise team, they don't end up having this one-size-fits-all mindset, which obviously it is not going to scale across the organization. So repo 1 is a source code side. The Iron Bank is a repo of binary containers. We have about 70 containers now. And the goal of that is to have the signed bits that can be pulled. And again, it's open source. Anyone can go and create an account and use the containers there. Very important, like I said, the ISE, all the code, all the automation we built is also available in different repos there that you see on the screen. So never hesitate to reuse that or contribute back if you want to change things so we can all get better. That's the beauty of open source source code. And really, we're partnering with all these companies to be able to centrally ingest their updates and provide it back to the DoD. Then we have two main environments. One is a party bus. That's a multi-tenant environment, so teams can just piggyback on the existing enclave and get access as a developer to all the tools. They don't get to pick the tools, they get to use them. And it's a cost per user per month, per developer per month. We have it at multiple classification levels. And then we have the Big Bang, and that's really more the dedicated enclave. So teams or bigger programs that need a specific set of tools, or they have a very well-defined use case and they want a dedicated environment for cyber reasons, they can get a Big Bang deployment where we're going to instantiate an entire stack, so teams can just use that and not have to reinvent the wheel. We built a cloud native access point, which is a way to connect to the cloud using Zero Trust. Very important. That was a game-changing aspect for DoD, so we don't have to use the TIC or the CAP, which is on the DoD, so we don't have to VPN to the DoD networks to be able to connect to the cloud. And that's been a very important thing that we were able to do in 45 days and get it fully accredited by DoD CIO. What's also important is obviously training. We have 100,000 people we have to train in a year. So we have Platform 1 training onboarding options, including simple self-learning content. We partnered with O'Reilly and the Linux Foundation to get access to their unbiased training content, so it's not pushing for one company versus another, ideally. And then we have training sessions, whether it's a one-day quick overview of DevSecOps for management, all the way to a full MVP, where teams can just access the 2-month onboarding with baked-in teams doing pair programming to train their existing teams and be able to launch their minimal viable product. That's also critical for scale, so it's not in a vacuum, and it's really designed based on their mission needs and their MVP as well. We have multiple managed tools. We have the ability to push containers to the high side to higher classification levels. We have pen testing teams to help making sure that the applications and the platforms as secure as they can be. That's also very important. We also awarded multiple contract vehicles, so that was always very important for DoD to be able to buy those tools, licenses, and talent. So teams like F-35, for example, could come to DoD and Platform 1 and ask for cloud compute storage, ask for different licenses of different tools, and then ask for services and talent, maybe DevSecOps engineers or site reliability engineers, and get all of that usually within 30 days, which is pretty fast, obviously, for DoD. Really, when we look at automation for us, it's critical when you have all these environments running at multiple classification levels. You don't want to have drift between environments. So everything is code, all networking changes, all configuration changes, everything is in source code. So Git becomes your source of truth, your central repo where everything is really stored. So really having multiple set of eyes on code to make sure the code cannot be tampered with. So of course we use merge requests or pull requests to be able to enforce a multiple set of eyes on code changes, and that makes everything then immutable and replicable and automated, ideally with no human in production, where we can disable SSH and all that, because everything is pulled from Git and applied to the running Kubernetes cluster. And we use Algo CD, which is an open source tool to do that. So again, everything is code, even tests and configuration changes and configuration management. Everything is in the source code repo. Then additionally, what's interesting is the move to GitOps. And so GitOps is really kind of the evolution of infrastructure as code. And really what it means is this automated pull. So Kubernetes will be able to pull from Git and be able to implement your changes automatically, and you can go back and revert changes, and that enables you to either go back in time if you made a mistake and roll back, or update your stack continuously based on the code changes and passing the CI/CD pipeline. That's really a critical component to make sure that we mitigate the cyber risk, because it's a pull from production pulls from Git, and not a push from your CI/CD tool into your production stack, which means then your GitLab or Jenkins or whatever CI/CD tool you're using has the keys to your production environment, and that's just not best practice. So we pull, we don't push. That mitigates the cyber threat there. The continuous ATO concept is a little game-changing for the government. We are releasing publications to make that a broader concept. Really, the concept behind this is very different from a normal ATO process. We don't accredit the thing, the software we're releasing. We accredit the platform, the CI/CD pipeline, the software factory, with the gates in testing and cyber gates. And if it's passing the gates, then the software coming out of the factory is accredited, but it has to run on the platform as well. It's also thanks to continuous monitoring and the zero trust enforcement that we get in production, that we can now trust that the platform is doing what it needs to do in production as well. So we accredit the platform, we accredit the pipeline and the factory, and if it's passing the factory the factory gates, then the software is accredited. We accredit the teams using the platform, so we need to make sure they have the skills to use it and not bypass or try to temper that kind of stuff. So very important to be able to ensure that the team has what it takes to use the platform and get the training that's necessary for that. There is a question on the Q&A box where somebody is asking how does a vendor get started to meet to be accredited on the container repo. We have an onboarding guide to explain how to get your container approved for DoD use. If you go on the software.av.mil website, you'll find in the DSOP, which is DevSecOps, DSOP documents page, there is a link called Onboarding. And that explains to any company, any open source team, how to get their container approved for DoD use. It's pretty simple. If you already have the container, it's a pretty simple process. We do have some DoD requirements, including being able to build the container offline without having to download anything in the Docker file. So you'll see that as a requirement. We explain how to do that if you don't know how. It's pretty simple. We just decouple the download of dependencies from the build of the container. So the dependencies follow us, and we know all of the dependencies that are inside the container. We have a whole container hardening guide that we released as well to guide teams on how to secure and harden containers as well. So go on the website, reach out to the team on the Repo One, and that's going to give you access to everything you need to know. And I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to put the link to the email also if you have any questions. But again, never hesitate to go to the software.f.mil website. That's where we have all the information that you need. And thank you for all the time today.
Hello, I'm Tom Suter. I'm the founder of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. And today we have with us Daryl Peak, a good friend of the program. Daryl is a senior manager for the Digital Transformation Organization over at Salesforce. And definitely follow him on Twitter, follow him on LinkedIn. He's a man of all media. Thank you for coming today, Daryl.
Thank you for having me, Tom. I'm really glad to be here and to talk with the audience today about a very important topic and essentially trying to understand the solutions for today's state of the world. So one of the things that we wanted to really cover is we know that there are so many trailblazers across the public sector and across government. And we are so excited to be working with many of you on various use cases for your government agency to provide exceptional services to citizens and employees. Forward-looking statement, essentially make all purchasing decisions based on current available technology and not on future technology that may be covered today. We want to thank you. Thank you for attending today. Thank you for being a trailblazer in public service, as a customer, as an employee, and as a partner. Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you. I, like many of you, have seen a lot that has been going on across the nation. And we are very much looking at what's happening across the Black community in regards to racism, violence, and hate. And Salesforce would like to partner and be an ally to speak up for justice and equality for all. We believe that together we can make the positive changes in the world and have a better tomorrow. And with that, it's about our values. Our values are core and instrumental to what we do. And our number one value is trust. We want to continue to build trusted relationships with our commercial and public sector partners. And the way we do this is make our information and our servers and infrastructure visible to you 24/7 through trust.salesforce.com. Next is customer success. We believe that your success is our success. And by working hand in hand with you as a partner, we believe that together we can have some very powerful outcomes. Innovation is next. Salesforce provides 3 updates per year in order to drive innovation, drive technology, and ensure that you are delivering the latest and greatest to your customers, users, and stakeholders. And last but certainly not least is equality. Salesforce believes in equality across the board, that all groups, every individual that makes up our organization and also our community has a voice and a seat at the table. So we want to continue to make that our message as we go forward through these difficult times. Part of the difficulty is that there is a digital imperative. Technology is moving faster than ever before. We are now seeing that many organizations impacted by the pandemic are now moving to digital. We also see that there are a lot of applications that you're able to have contactless engagements with them. For instance, Starbucks. You are now able to purchase your coffee all through an app and then pick it up at the location. There's also a rise in digital communications. Many of us are on Zoom these days. How are we ensuring that that experience is fulfilling the need of a number of our conversations, as well as how are we pulling all the information together in order to make the data-driven digital decisions? And when I talk to many of you, we talk about legacy challenges, fragile integrations, islands of information, spreadsheets that are run amok, configuration management challenges, lack of transparency across the board, as well as compliance and certain employee skill gaps. It is one of the experiences that I had while at DHS in regards to siloed applications across the board, but also the use of spreadsheets and PDFs in order to track information about individuals inside our organization and external. But we need to focus on closing that gap. So therefore, Salesforce focuses on the Customer 360, a trusted, smart, flexible, and sustainable platform that brings together relationship management, service centers, marketing, and commerce together. And in that, it provides and reveals unlimited possibilities through the insights and transparency that the platform enables. We are also very happy about the acquisitions of the MuleSoft platform for API integration, as well as Tableau for its supreme analytics capabilities. Baked into the platform, you also have a lot of emerging technologies, including mobile out of the box, security, blockchain, AI, and natural language processing. But as you can see, the customer is always in the center. Therefore, when the pandemic happened, Salesforce scrambled to provide solutions for our customers that would work, because we know that it wasn't only about closing down certain physical locations, but reopening. So work.com is our focus because we believe it's a solution for today's state of the world. Because we know that initially it was about stabilizing your agency in regards to the crisis, then moving to reopening the workplace through a essential platform or applications that help provide the information needed, and then maximizing your impact through utilization of the Salesforce platform. And we see this through the journey. And as we look at this journey, we are going through this crisis and through different periods of the crisis. So many of you have established telework policies, have ensured that your employees have the tools that they need to perform their duties. But now it's a focus on reopening your workplace. How will you do that? How will you account for accommodations? How will you make sure that social distancing is in place? How will you make sure that all aspects are sanitized, as well as managing schedules? Those things can be done through the use of the Salesforce platform. And last but not least is maximizing your impact. Is now that we've seen this shift, we know things will never be the same. But there's so much that we are learning currently in being virtual. And how will we translate that into the services that we provide? So Salesforce wanted to provide some considerations before reopening. So this way you're not coming into your reopening process without the proper insights. So how do you assess readiness for the workplace? What are certain criteria that your workplace specifically is looking to do? How will you reimagine your agency for the new normal? And where can you go for guidance to reopen safely? Well, we believe that solution is work.com, because reopening will be a journey, but we could be a part of the process to help you. Reopening communities and agencies safely is based on the information provided and the insights provided. Many of you have seen data points associated to COVID-19, and Tableau is providing a lot of that insight through the Data Hub. Returning to your workplace, providing employees with information, with applications that help with contact tracing. Reimagining your organization, so getting advisory services and having best practices, doing a grant and volunteer management, and helping you reimagine the way that your organization delivers its capabilities, and also reskilling your employees. Many employees have to get comfortable with using Zoom and other applications that were done in a virtual format. So therefore, Salesforce has a learning capability called My Trailhead that could help with various employee roles within your organization, and also responding to the future crisis. Because we know it's not only going to be COVID-19 today, but what is the issue of tomorrow? Will it be a natural disaster? Will it be a significant emergency? Or will it be another potential pandemic that you experience in which you will have to respond to quickly? So here's a quick look at some of the work.com capabilities. And we want you to focus on reopening safely on the world's #1 CRM. A couple of the points that I would like to make is the Workforce Command Center at the fingertips, giving leadership the proper insight to make decisions. Emergency response management is allocating health public and private sector resources together in order to solve solutions. And one of the most used applications is contact tracing for manually tracing health and relationship contacts. MuleSoft, as mentioned earlier, is also part of this capability and will help you unlock employee data, enrich your products, as well as adopting best practices for data mapping. On the work.com website, we will have information such as a playbook, information from experts, and also guidance from some of our employees. One of the use cases that we are very happy to talk about is the state of Rhode Island. Gina Riamato was very supportive of utilizing the Salesforce platform for contact tracing because she wanted to get her state back to work. And in partnership with Salesforce, she is now able to establish a contact tracing capability as well as a command center in order to have all the information that she needs to, as she says, efficient, reliable contact tracing is essential for getting everybody back to work. And we're really excited about the partnership there. Just quickly going over our Trailhead capabilities. This learning platform is free to you, so feel free to check out the website. There's so much essential training there. And here are a few training opportunities for you for operation planners, people leaders, and employees. Thank you very much for your time, because as we move forward, Salesforce wants to be a partner in your journey because we all believe that there is a better tomorrow ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the time.
Daryl, I appreciate your time. That was very, very important message. Daryl Peak, Senior Manager for the Digital Transformation Organization at Salesforce. Thank you for your attention, and now back to the rest of the program.
All right, can you hear me on platform audio? Hello, hello.
I can.
We can hear you, Tracy.
I'm not muted. Can you hear me? Thank you. Hey there, everybody. Can you hear my voice? Thumbs up from the panelists if you can hear me. Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the afternoon track on DevOps, DevSecOps. This is the virtual summit focused on chatting through a couple of different things on emerging technologies. Decided to parse out the DevOps track, and today's panel has a number of federal industry experts, luminaries, and we wanted to chat through a number of different questions today. I'm going to have each one of the panelists introduce themselves, and then I'll introduce myself a little bit more, and we'll head into a round of questions. If you do have questions during the course of the panel this afternoon, pop those into the Q&A function on the platform itself, and we'll see if we can get those things covered. I'm going to start with Hassan. Hassan, do you want to introduce yourself, please? Take a couple minutes and also answer, how does DevOps and DevSecOps and securing, moving forward with the security mindset, kind of play into where you spend your days?
Thanks for having me, Tracy. I'm Hassan Yassar. I'm a technical director at the Software Engineering Institute. I'm managing the group. That group does the continuous deployment capabilities. And also, I'm an adjunct faculty member at the Carnegie Mellon University. I'm teaching a DevOps course at the graduate level. So that's kind of like my day is always either teaching or working with a group and advising the DoD more about how to implement DevOps or DevSecOps or Agile practices. So what I typically do in my work, just a little bit ideas, as an SCI, we are advising, and mainly for DoD folks, as the setting up their DevSecOps environment or helping them to build up a DevOps in their complex systems environment. What things to be measured? What are the challenges are with respect to technology? Maybe sometimes cultural challenges, sometimes in technology barriers, sometimes like a architectural barriers. So basically, we analyze and help them to build up their DevSecOps environments, and that is really helping them to deploy the capabilities at the relevance of their work. So going back to your question, Trey, it's really a long answer we can give. Like, technically, if we are doing DevOps, we should have the security in it, but we are not doing a security as part of DevOps. What I'm really calling up DevSecOps is doing the right DevOps when we say DevSecOps. And then overall, I know we're going to talk about a lot today, and addressing a security throughout the life cycle. It is not just between Dev and Ops. It is not before Dev. It's not after Ops. It's basically everywhere in the life cycle. So as I said, it's just making DevOps is right with the DevSecOps concept.
Hey, thank you, Hassan. Ian, how'd you like to introduce yourself and kind of answer the same question, please?
Yes. So I'm Ian Anderson. I work for the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Dahlgren. I'm actually at their Dam Neck Annex in Virginia Beach. I am a lead DevSecOps engineer with one of the groups down there. Currently helping the Warfare Center as a whole plan and transition over to DevSecOps best practices as they stand up their hybrid cloud capabilities. One of the interesting things, working from a big Navy perspective down to the Warfare Center perspective, we are currently aligned under NAVC, which has about 40 activities, with 10 of those being surface warfare centers or undersurface warfare centers. So that presents a different challenge than you would see maybe in the private sector, as NAVC would like to dictate, how we would transition to, DevSecOps best practices, what the infrastructure looks like. But the warfare centers kind of operate as their own contractors, even though we're still part of the government. We go out and we find projects that will, give us funds. So it's really up to whoever is giving us these projects to kind of dictate, well, I want to move to this infrastructure or move faster than what maybe NAVC, our parent organization, is dictating. So there's a bit of a challenge there. One of the other main things from a DevOps, DevSecOps perspective is, this, within the warfare centers, that very old mentality, the waterfall mentality, under Dahlgren, you have the programs such as Aegis, Tomahawk, SLBM, which have been there for years, and it's not just only at our warfare center. One of the biggest challenges is, how do you explain these simply new processes and best practices to programs that have been doing something different for years now? And that's some of the things that we're working through right now.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Brian, you're up, man.
Great, thank you. Yes, I'm Brian Fox with 18F, an element within GSA that's designed to facilitate IT modernization in federal government, in a few cases state government if they're using federal dollars, particularly in the health and human services realm. From a DevOps standpoint, I co-lead our DevOps guild, which facilitates internal learning within the TTS group of of GSA, or Technology Transformation Services, as well as co-lead the related DevOps community of practice, with our goal being facilitating spreading lessons learned and the courage to change across federal government. We've had a number of stories here that we've shared over the last year in operations. Nick Shalon was just presenting in this venue. We had him on back in November or early December. Jez Humble from Google, and also an 18F across federal government. So just from a DevOps standpoint, it's a big push in federal government. It's the, as I've described it, it's organizations need to go agile. They need to start that cloud migration, and then there's a terrific opportunity in front of them after doing both. Really doing agile on steroids, cloud being steroids, and that is faster iterations thanks to cloud and accomplishing CI/CD. So that's what we're up to here over at 18F from a community standpoint.
Excellent. Do we have Ed or Jyoti?
Edward's here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I work at...
There you go. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. So I work at the... Thank you. I work at the Federal Transit Administration, which is part of the Department of Transportation. I manage the DevOps project there. For us, it was more of a natural evolution. We decided to take it on once we completed some other things. So for us, the big focus was originally moving into more of an agile framework and having tools that support that. A lot of our systems have deliveries of 2-week increments of all their software. So we usually do 26 releases a year per system generally, excluding emergencies or things like that. Once we were doing the agile, one of the things we noticed was there was some inconsistency with the agile delivery. So then we did an overhaul of the way we did our software delivery to align it to agile. While doing that, we decided that we also wanted to put in place some best practices around the technologies we had. So we started stipulating what was good development and what was bad development, and then how do you deploy stuff. And once we had all that stuff together, we started tying all this data together to look at it and give us a general gauge of the health of programs. And from there, we started becoming interested in what could we automate so that we had humans doing less of those types of things. And that's where DevOps started to fit into this a lot. So we then started taking some individual teams and having them do CI/CD types of things. And once we proved that could work, and they were able to do things with more of an automated testing focus, we then moved into thinking about the cloud strategy and how we could go more serverless or have things only used when they were available. So it's been an evolution, but the big focus has been building the capability, then automating it and making it faster or less of a burden for us.
Hey, thank you. So hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm getting a little bit of dropout on your voices. Can you still hear me? Thumbs up from anybody? Awesome, thank you. Tracy Bannon. I am a DevOps focused person right now. My background is as a software architect and engineer. I've been doing that for a very long time. I work with the MITRE Corporation, which is very much like SEI. Actually, I've worked very closely with SEI for about 10 years now. MITRE is an FFRDC, and we don't compete with industry. The goal is to make sure that we are providing that thought partnership and driving software engineering, DevSecOps, cyber aspects forward for the federal government. Background as a software architect and engineer. I also like to jokingly say that I've been doing DevOps since before there was DevOps. Brian has heard me tell this story before. My husband and I both worked at AccuWeather early in our career. I was in engineering and he was in operations, and somebody figured out very quickly that if you called our house, you had operations and engineering on the phone at the same time. I got to see what was happening in production. I could tell him where to look, where to navigate. I could start making changes on the backside, and we could work cohesively to get things done. And it taught me a lot. So yeah, I'm the dev to his ops. Now, Hassan, something you said earlier really resonated with me. I don't always say DevSecOps, and sometimes people, especially in the federal space, get a little frustrated with me. DevOps to me is holistic. It is everything, but because we need to have such a focus on cyber, because sometimes in our rush to get some continuous integration, to run fast with scissors, to get there are some dangers with speed, and adding that phoneme in the middle seems to really help us to get to a common place. So I have a couple of questions that I want to throw out here, and in no specific order, I'd like to get your thoughts around them. And Hassan, I'll actually post this one over your way. Right now, what do you think is the biggest technology challenge that DevSecOps is going to help to solve or intends to solve?
So I'm going to a little bit dive into it. So when we say technology challenge, actually, we're looking for maybe a tool perspective or learning the tools. For me, there are a lot of tools available out there. There are more than, and I have been counting actual tools. There's a favorite website I have been following, like devopsbookmark.com. I have been following tools. I see that tools keep increasing. I guess because challenge is about the complexity of the tools. Because there are many things available, but sometimes we are struggling what type of tools we can choose. Depends on our architecture, it depends on our platform. And sometimes we are trying to solve the one problem with using a single tools may not be applicable for, or maybe trying to use the same tools with other does that. So for me, it's about more choosing the right tools. So technology is available. Like, as you said, Trace, and I have been doing the maybe DevOps, we never called DevOps before, but we don't have that tools before. Like, we don't have a limited integration server. We don't have an open source easy. We don't have a container technology that so much easier to use. We had it, but we're not able to use as easy as today right now. So it's about more choosing the right technologies versus the availabilities. I go that route. It's just which one is right for us. This is a big challenge. Like, we cannot use the same tools every time. We may not use the same type of pipeline for every time. So there's no a single way to solve the problem. It's about what is really good for us. That's the biggest challenge. Because an organization has to decide, or the architect has to decide, or team has to decide what are the right technologies we are going to use.
Brian, Ian, anyone else you want to add to that, or any other perspective?
Absolutely. I love what Hassan kicked off with and just how he described the importance of tooling. But I think as you described too, it's the people, right? And there was an artificial integration of people in your household, and your organization got benefits from that they could talk to dev and ops, and this now this insertion of security in between it, that the need to continually integrate, not just on the tooling and in that technical pipeline, but I think what DevOps is really all about, if we back up, it starts with people. It's getting folks tightly integrated and talking about things earlier. And I think just the terminology.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just quickly, I think the terminology is highlighting the opportunity there more than anything else, that security needs to be and wants to be a part of it. And currently at 18F, I'm on a product team called login.gov, and we had something very similar but different happen, where one of our partners was asking for a VPAT, which is related to 508 compliance. And we had an internal discussion on our team about, because we use DevOps methodologies, but are we doing enough upfront, not just with security and not just with dev and ops, but also with 508 compliance? So I think going forward, there'll be more drivers towards integrating people in all of those, what we might describe as kind of requirements, coming together earlier in the cycle. And I think that's what's driving it, is that integration of people, and cloud and agile and these CI/CD pipelines is allowing it technically, but there'll be increasing need to tie more of the organization to that. That's my deep thought or even a question around it is how do we do that better?
Well, it would open up a tag-on question to that. What I'm hearing you say, I agree with wholeheartedly. There is a massive people, I'll call it a people challenge. What are some of the effective techniques that you see looking to integrate? You mentioned artificial integration of people. What other type of cultural changes need to take place to help us to start to realize the benefits of DevSecOps? Ian? Hassan?
Yes. So, with multiple projects, I've seen you always get those people who are very resistant to the change, and they say, "Oh, this is how I've been doing it for 30 years." There's a lot of things at 30 years, not a lot changes, but in technology, even 5 years, so much can change. But you still find that resistance, and I think one of for our project at least. Not to fully go, yes, we're going full DevOps, this is all the stuff we're going to change. Even if you're, just making, essentially a little change at a time to kind of bring them in and show, these are some of the things that we can do. And I think it really starts with, the most fundamental thing that DevOps is, or DevSecOps is based on, is doing the agile methodology. Actually getting those, holdouts, whether it be your stakeholder or somebody within the development team, to say, hey, let's go ahead and try this, and let's see how it goes. And 9 times out of 10, they find development time, productivity goes up. They really enjoy it. For the stakeholders, they love being a part of it. And then from there, you kind of build on and say, let's take this a little further. Let's, put some automation in there. Let's, do these things. And I think, not if you are finding resistance, not going out there and getting aggressive, saying we're going to change everything. It would be the correct approach. Kind of, a little bit at a time if you're really seeing a lot of resistance.
Do you find that there's a need to educate developers and operators more on some of the cyber techniques, given that our cyber brethren are now, we're taking them from being the final phase gate and making them a full part of the life cycle? And is there also an education aspect to this?
Yes, I think there definitely is. I see Hassan, if you want to go ahead and speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, and before going to that education pieces, I think we have to look at why there's a challenge for a change. Because of when there's a change, because either people, they don't know the stuff, they don't know about the tools, they don't have any ideas, they don't have any concept. Because if they don't know what is really it's going to help them to help their job they achieve, it's creating as the pressure, it's creating like, I don't want to do that because technically I don't know. So which is a kind of the training pieces comes in the picture. We have to train them. But also other things, and when you look at analysis of old days and comparing to today right now, starting with waterfall to go to agile thinking. So why the waterfall became so bad? Because we thought that concept, even the waterfall paper was not saying that has to be very strictly to the requirements and design, develop, and test. It was asking actually to the proper way of the software engineering by doing iterative incremental development 1971. What we did as an engineer, because we don't trust each other, we don't want to take responsibilities, we took that jargon, we said, I'm an architect, I will do my job best, and I'm going to write everything else. I'm going to hand over to the dev team, let the dev team code it. So dev actually took that concept, they said, I'm going to write the code best, I don't care what it is, I just going to write the code based on what architecture. It's kind of like creating a silo because of how, and we kind of felt responsibilities of our work, what we were doing it. So we never really thought that kind of a trust relationship. We never have a collaboration culture. So we ended up make it more silo. That's the reason we are against the change. That's the reason we don't want to be other experimentations. Either we don't know, we don't trust each other, or we don't know the technologies. Or sometimes some people are thinking that I may lose my job if I go using everything automated. What I'm going to do now? You're going to take my job over, like especially testers. Testers are thinking, if you do everything automation, that I don't lose my job, but they don't necessarily think about that this is going to help me for a better life, better work, and the quality of the work. It's kind of more misunderstanding component seems in the picture.
You bring up an interesting point about the developers versus architects. I'd like to hear your opinion on this. In some of the bigger organizations that you've worked with, what I am observing and experiencing are that development teams, I'll just call them delivery teams, they are cross-functional. However, they don't necessarily have someone who is in an architectural role. They may have a tech lead. And I'm seeing there be a lot of growing pains between that first Agile or DevSecOps pilot and then trying to scale. And there appears to be an impedance between the need to think at the enterprise level, the enterprise still matters, and thinking at the app level, potentially very focused on end user functionality. Are you observing some of those same things? Hassan, I imagine that you really are seeing this, but guys, what are you experiencing in that dichotomy between architecture and delivery teams?
So I'm an architect, so I don't do things from an ivory tower, I guess is the best way to put it. I think that's like one of the things that drives me crazy when I look at a lot of DevOps that I see going on in the space, is that they try and do things without really understanding the limitations of technologies or creating things that fit around what you're doing. So for me, when we started implementing DevOps types of things into our projects, we did them as experiments, and it was more about the evolution of the teams and how they were self-improving. And as those teams improved, we looked at these things and asked, is this something that should be more of a standard across the entire enterprise? Is it a standard that is more focused on this particular technology, or is it a standard that's more focused on this particular project? And depending on where it fit was how far it would end up bubbling up. But then the other nice thing about this is you have very tangible things that you're able to show to other people, and you can see the value and understand the limitations. So that's the important thing. Like, when you talk about the incremental approach, which is brought up earlier, is that, do small things, see what works, understand how it works, and figure out whether or not that's something that can bubble up. So, data governance things where we talk about, how we structure our tables in our databases, that's something that we can do across all projects. But then when you look at how you promote code up, that can be very specific depending on the type of technology you're building it in. Something that's like Salesforce is going to be radically different than using a .NET application, and the way that I move my code up between those two things. They're not going to be uniform. So I would rather just prove that the Salesforce works this way and the .NET works another way, and make those standards for those particular technologies.
One of the things you just brought up was kind of an innovative point of view. So a question to the panel is, in this need for continuous learning, continuous innovation, they are very important parts of agility and of DevSecOps. What recommendations do you have for balancing the need for exploration with the need to have cybersecurity baked in?
Yeah, I can go ahead and speak to that for.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been on 2 projects where we were putting in DevSecOps best practices, and as we were just getting started, so Dahlgren right now is kind of planning out how they're going to go to DevSecOps, DevOps, a hybrid cloud. So it's the very early stages right now that they're getting organized. So for our stakeholders for these projects, they wanted to move a lot faster. So we needed to be able to do that experimentation. And the way we did it was, we have a Node application with a MariaDB backend. We actually got some licenses for the IL2 or commercial Microsoft Azure Cloud and Azure. And then just did experiments, what was the best way to set up the pipelines? How do we actually go about building something, these things? And when we felt comfortable enough to, then port that over into the IL4 unclassified Microsoft Azure, which is at Dahlgren, or was being utilized at Dahlgren at the time, we were able to go in and set up those pipelines and then realize, oh, well, they need to enable this plugin for us, or they need to go out and get this piece of software. So we were able to do that experimentation and bring over exactly how we wanted to do it, and then actually go ahead and tell those engineers at Dahlgren who were managing those resources that, hey, to get this capability, you need to purchase this software or allow us to have this plugin. And that's how we went about it.
Hey, Brian, I know you are in the Innovation Hub over there. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and just what others have already brought up, I'd like to highlight and kind of tie them together. Hassan mentioned, that juxtaposition of waterfall versus agile, and the reality of why waterfall doesn't work is because it's impossible for the organization and the people that make it up to understand everything that's required, so that let alone understanding the specific ways forward and the opportunities and the risks from the very get-go, right? Meanwhile, the ability and the benefits of the organization constantly learning, which is, and what we were highlighting before, which was bringing everyone together allows them to learn as a team faster and better. And anyone who's experienced working alone versus working with a small group of people that are talented, the juxtaposition is pretty tremendous, right? There's synergies that happen, and your own individual work is better when you're part of a healthy team that is constantly learning and building its skills. So that is, some of those benefits that come out of it. And the ability to deliver faster allows that team to, I love what was just said around experiments, right? Operationally experiment faster, throw more things against a wall quicker, and get feedback to the team and the organization much quicker. As related to cyber, how all of that enables cyber is because of the risk and the threats, as well as the challenges and opportunities, are rapidly evolving or constantly evolving and changing. The need and opportunity to bring everyone together, and dev and ops, as we were describing earlier, is just part of it. What about security? What about 508 compliance? What about folks that know cyber, et cetera? The more folks that you can integrate sooner and get them to learn from one another and develop understanding of what their various skills are and how they relate to the final product, enables some team empathy for why do we need to do 508 compliance early on? Why do we need to think about that early and throughout? Why do we need to think about security early on and throughout the product development, et cetera, right? Those are just two examples, and there's many more. I think that's what the benefit of bringing all that together, and some of the challenges as far as folks doing this, or where things are very successful from a DevOps standpoint or DevSecOps standpoint, is really where leadership and management is willing to bring folks together, and they feel secure that they're going to work iteratively against uncertainty, whether it's cyber threats or product opportunities for the user. So just some thoughts that way, trying to put everything together.
Very interesting you brought it, actually. So I'm not able to hold myself, because it's really a good point you brought it, Brian. And based on this year DevSecOps community survey, and we find that very interesting study this year. And that actually showed us the happy developers are doing the best on the DevOps, using his DevOps environments. And also the people are trusting more outcome as people are using DevSecOps environments. So if organizations are implementing DevOps in a maturity level, and their developer are more happier, and also their developer are more exploratory. So that's really a good side effect in a good way. Then if you have a good DevOps environment, so technically it's taking up a good time with automation concept, developers have a time to explore ideas, explore the concept, explore the tools with the framework of security. Because by design and good DevOps environment is helping them to follow the security guidance. Like technically, they cannot go outside the internet, pull something for their open source build libraries. They can go internal as an example. Or there's a lot of checks and balances through the pipeline. So a developer will experiment something with the control of the security folks because it's part of it. So it's statistically shown that, and almost more than 80% people are more happier than comparing the non-DevOps organization. Was very open-minded things. I said, wow, look at that. And then another interesting study actually that came out from that survey, and people are using DevOps environment more trusting the knowledge, and versus the non-DevOps environment are gossiping about the security. Like, I heard something that, but they're not looking for the result of the systems. So now with the DevOps environment, we can look at the result of the system with respect to any security testing. So it's basically goes back to the learning mechanisms. Like, we learn from what we faced and what we did and exercise, and we learn from that and learn to get better out of it.
So a couple of good points that you brought up there. Oh,
Hassan, I just want to respond to that. Absolutely. I think it's really around transparency and how willing is that organization, both folks on the team, leadership, and those stakeholders or users, to see those actual outcomes. And as we were working on 508 compliance, our initial report wasn't as good as we'd like. It was an opportunity for learning, but the team has to feel safe about reporting on that and knowing exactly where they're at, where the stake is in the ground, and it may not be as far along as you all would like, right?
Right.
It's an interesting point, Hassan.
Yeah, there's some additional interesting statistics that are talking about, and we're seeing this on a number of different surveys, around how morale, how workload impacts security as well. Because just like there's a 40-hour work week from a physical perspective in an industrial setting, because you start to break down after a while. Personally, you're not paying as much attention. The same thing happens in a cyber environment. There have been quite a number of studies over the last year, a lot of industry focus on that part of it. And so when you bring up increasing trust and morale, a natural piece of that is in using that trust would be that ability to work more smartly, get the type of knowledge that you need in order to get things done, and reducing your cyber posture, at least the cyber posture pieces, cyber gaffes that are introduced by the team themselves. So from that perspective, go ahead. Okay. We have just a little bit of a delay with my audio, so I apologize. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One of the things that you said is that developers and the organization are getting more trusting of the tools that are being used within their organization. There's also a cyber risk to that if we're not applying rigor. Are there techniques, are there leading practices that you espouse, that you would recommend, that help keep tabs on the tool chain itself, the software pedigree of the very things that we're using for our DevSecOps pipelines?
What's the most important thing about DevOps to me is that you're using tools in an automated way and it's creating automated data. That data is very consistent and it should be something that you can more quickly read over time. And so one of the things that we're working towards in my agency is we're working towards building dashboards for each project. And the idea behind this is I can look at this dashboard and I can see how things are trending. So, over time, are there more security findings being found by my automated tools? Has the team been doing a poor job with automated testing and I'm seeing more automated test failures? How often are my environments being refreshed? So these are ways in aggregate to monitor your individual projects and know whether or not they're healthy or not. And that gets back to what I was talking about earlier with my agency, and what we were doing was we were doing a lot of this stuff in a manual way, and now we're going to be moving towards having this in real time. and removing a lot of these data collection activities. And then that will allow us to be more reactive, because if we see that security findings are trending up on Project A, then we will focus more resources towards dealing with security of Project A. So that's where that starts to become this balancing thing. But then, some of the earlier things you guys were talking about, it's no different than in Agile. In Agile, when you move from waterfall to Agile, you have your business line become more involved in the project, and that becomes a challenge because sometimes they don't have the availability to deal with things in like a more frequent manner. When you start scanning security all the time, you're either going to need a security resource more engaged to meddle through everything and figure out whether or not they're false positives or real issues. Or the other challenge is you may end up needing to have more T-shaped people on your dev team that are more able to handle dealing with more than just development. And it goes into the other areas. So for a lot of our projects, we don't deal with the security aspect as much, but our developers write all of their own automated tests. And then they have like another developer review it. So the nature of the work when we moved into DevOps for a developer has changed. And that's the bigger shift, or something that can be very challenging with developers. Because a lot of them don't like dealing with security. A lot of them don't like dealing with testing. Those become big culture shifts that you got to deal with within your organization. But that's also why you want to do things small and incrementally. If you throw a bunch of this stuff on them at the same time, that'll cause them to really freak out or overload. And it'll also make it a little bit harder to understand what are the needs of the team versus if you do things in small little bits. You can see that this is not working and how do I shift it? But really, like the most important thing from what I started with is DevOps is about doing things in an automated way, and that automated way generates data that helps you evaluate the health of your projects. And so you also really need somebody who's looking at that data all the time. In the ideal world, you have somebody at least looking at it every day. If you start seeing that the tests are failing for automated tests, then you know that you need to be spending more time looking at that. If security is having a lot more findings increase on a day-by-day basis, you know you need to be putting more time towards that. And that allows you to course correct faster and hopefully have a good delivery at the end.
I think that I'm just going to chime a little bit here. And when we do the overload, because sometimes we do the security after the fact, like we design something, if we address the security early in life cycle, if we plan properly, and developer not going to over that because developers are getting overloaded because they are focusing more a business requirement. That's what the business is asking. And it was nothing that required specifically for the security perspective, like writing a more functional testing, but they're not thinking about the abuse case testing as an example. They don't know what the security controls for that organization it is. They don't know the prioritization either. So if they don't know that, and then after the security folks are seeing some tests, and they're asking about, hey, you have to do the better code, because they're overloaded already because of the current planning. So
so security architecture, though, like is something I think you're kind of moving towards with what you're describing, but that a lot of that stuff isn't going to be solved by DevOps. That's just around sound planning, like what you're going to put in place and how you're going to deal with that. But then the other piece of it you can deal with is thinking about like some general stuff, like for example, like cross-site scripting or SQL injection. So like, if I create a text box, I should wrap around that stuff so that I can't hack into the SQL database by putting like a semicolon in front of it and then like a SQL statement and pulling stuff out. So there's like, when you're building something in .NET, there are some general security practices you should always be following. And, you'd be surprised a lot of times when a team builds something at the end, you go through it and you see, oh, I've got like 20 places where I've allowed cross-site scripting and these 15 I've allowed SQL injection. Those are things that could have easily been avoided earlier on because it's entirely possible, maybe you hired a new college grad guy to come in there and start building and he wasn't following any of this stuff and it got missed by a review. Well, the security was getting it and it can recognize that stuff and that could have been something you could have addressed earlier.
Right. It's about the change in the culture. So like when you look at the top 10 vulnerabilities, like there are 24, 25, you can count it. And all of them has the same characteristics like input sanitization. It's a basic things. Sanitize the input. Whatever you do, you can eliminate a lot of problems and the site checking, etc. So, but it's a bit more about the changing the mindset. Let the developer are focusing on writing a secure code and by understanding common principle, which DevOps is going to help them a lot because of giving a learning mechanisms, giving a traceabilities, and giving a testing capabilities, and also the working as a team together. Like, we're going to ask what I'm going to do with respect to the security. Let the security team define what the requirements are, or help the team pick the right libraries as an example for open source components. So working as a team, it's basically solving the problem.
Right. So I heard a couple of terms here that I wanted to tease out. I heard you say about T-shaped, you wanting to have T-shaped individuals. I tend to call those your athletes, and teams do need those athletes that have breadth and depth, and be able to sample and help across to the different areas. Sometimes that's your architect. Depends on how hands-on that architect still is. I think we're going to get into some interesting conversations. We'll have to table it for another day, to get down a little bit further and talk about some of the security techniques that we can leverage specific to DevSecOps, container strategy, the vulnerabilities that are being introduced with containers. Pretty big, pretty scary. 44%, I believe, of industry is holding off on pushing something into production because they have security concerns over things that they've seen in their containers. That's a place where we do want to educate our developers. To your point, Emmett, we want to make sure that they're not just pulling anything down off the net. So there are a lot of smart things that we can do to enable them without disabling them, but kind of whispering in their ear at the same time. We have about 3 minutes left. I want to throw this out for your comment. Do you think that there is a cyber danger that comes with speed right now? Our emphasis that we hear again and again, I'd like it to be quality, I'd like it to be stability, but what I hear is fast, fast, fast. So, Hassan, I'm going to ask each one of you, and we'll close out with that as your kind of your topper for today.
I'm not against the speed if we have the controls, the monitoring, and if you are aware of the speed, how much we are going faster or driving faster. If you are aware of it, if you have the boundaries and constraints, I'm not scared from the speed. Speed is going to help us to get better, but we should be aware of that, what's going on.
Perfect. Hey, Brian, you're up.
Speed. I think speed's our friend, especially when it comes to security and cyber issues. The ability to change things rapidly to deal with the evolving threat. And then not just technically is speed our friend, but also from an organizational standpoint, the faster a team can learn, that's in everyone's benefit, whether it's just the product or dealing with threats. So speed is our friend.
Interesting. I haven't heard anybody say it quite that way before. Ian, what's your point of view on this?
Yes, people I work with at Dahlgren always say that our adversaries are not going to wait around for us. They're going to go ahead and do everything. So speed definitely is our friend. Obviously, just like Hassan said, as long as those controls are in there, you get those cybersecurity folks in, you get those, get the RMF people in early into the process, and they set up those controls. I don't see that being a problem. That speed is definitely necessary to get to where we want to go in the future.
All right, Emmett, how about you? Are you still there, Emmett? Do we lose your connection?
You're talking to me, Edward?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So when you look at the federal government, I think one of the other things that's important to acknowledge is that we do spend a lot of time more on the compliance side of security. And that's really what DevOps is trying to tackle. So when you think about doing compliance faster, I mean, that just seems intuitive or naturally the way that things should be going. So if you're gaining in that way, in the ideal world, we could spend more time doing higher value things, like finding more ways to use the data to identify other vulnerabilities or things along those lines. To me, when I look at the private sector, they're a little behind us in like how much time they spend making sure that everything's compliant, but they really create very innovative solutions to protect their information. Like, a law firm, I think like recently there was a law firm where their data was stolen and like the celebrity, like were being blackmailed for like $20 million. Law firms are very good at like locking their data down and not allowing those types of things to happen through like profiling their employees and things like that. to monitor everything. And that's some of the type of stuff we should be evolving towards. Is more the AI side of security and things like that, and spending less time worrying about how to ATO something. If I put in place a bunch of rules around what is a good secure system, I should be able to, in a very quick automated way, know whether or not a new system coming up is going to be secure to those standards.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Guys, I would love to continue this conversation, but we just got a flash that we are out of time. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Anybody who's been listening in today, please reach out to any of the 5 of us. I know we'd all love to continue to engage on this. We'll see you soon, everyone.
See you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your
Bye,
time.
guys.
Hello, my name is Tom Suter, and I'm the founder of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. And we have with us today Dan Bolland, Director of Federal Programs at Altair, as well as James Turbeso, Federal Solutions Specialist at Altair. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Great, Tom. Thanks for having us.
Well, good to have, yeah, no problem. Good to have you today. I'm looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks again, Tom, for having us. And again, my name is Daniel Bolland, Director of Federal Programs for Data Analytics at Altair. Today, we're just going to talk about a few different use cases that we have been running into recently, talking with some of our federal clients, and we're going to go over some just kind of general information about our data analytics product suite for you. So thanks for joining us, and hope you find this useful. Next slide. Again, my name's Dan, as you can see there on the right. We're also joined today, as Tom said, by James Turbeso, Federal Solutions Specialist. I'm going to be going through some slides today. Shouldn't take very long at all. And then I'm actually going to hand it over to James. Seeing is believing, and he can show you live what the product looks like. As you can see there on the agenda, basically what I said, we'll talk a little bit about who Altair is as a company, the solutions and use cases that we provide to our federal clients, our products, and then again, a live demo at the end. Next slide. So Altair is actually a global company that has thousands of employees that not only concentrate on just data analytics, but also other solutions that we provide, like high performance computing, simulation, design, and Internet of Things. We're publicly traded, again, a global company headquartered in the Detroit area. And we actually already do have 1,000+ software assets spread across multiple different government agencies that we'll talk about today. Next slide. The Altair Data Analytics Suite boasts many different products. The ones that we'll talk about today are at the top in orange, and you will see all of those today. James will show them to you: Monarch, Knowledge Hub, Knowledge Studio, and Panopticon. And as you can see there below, some of the attributes that describe the solutions that those products provide. We do like to think of ourselves as an end-to-end analytics suite, and what I mean by that is full spectrum analytics, from data preparation to advanced analytics like predictive, prescriptive analytics, AI, machine learning modeling, all the way to the end to the decision making via data visualization. Next slide. We are a well-established vendor within the federal marketplace. We'll be talking about 2 main use cases today that revolve around criminal investigation analytics as well as maintenance analytics. But as you can see there, some of the other bullet points that we have listed. And then on the bottom left, obviously some logos that I'm sure you folks are familiar with. Very large, lot of assets within the DoD, very large customer for us, Air Force in particular, which James will touch on. And then federal financial too is very large. So FDIC and IRS, as you can see there as well, but definitely many more agencies as well. Next slide. This is actually an example workflow of our Monarch automation server product. And what this product allows is for essentially data automation. So we've basically built a model in our Monarch desktop product to transform United States Air Force IMDS report maintenance data. So there's maintenance data that comes out of the system. It's spit out in a report that you can see there as an example on the bottom left. Humans can understand it. We can understand the headers, the footers, the appends, how things line up. But a computer might not necessarily be able to do analytics on top of it. So we've built a model to change that data, that unstructured data, and put it into a tabular format. So turn it into rows and columns so that we can start to do more advanced analytics on top of it. In this particular case, we've taken that model and we've uploaded it into our automation server, and we've actually built a whole automated process around it where we're actually going to monitor basically a network drive where those maintenance reports are dropped off, and every time a new report comes, we're going to run it through our model, and then we're going to provide a series of distributions on it, like sending it to Tableau for visual analytics, an archive location for auditing purposes maybe down the line, pushing it to a database, or maybe just doing automated email report distribution. So at 0900, the boss comes in, he has his maintenance report, he knows what parts may or may not fail, the probability behind them failing or not, and what aircraft he has available. So this is just an example of something that you can take, very simple manual process and turn it into a very powerful business process, automated process. Next slide. Speaking of data automation, the Naval Academy is a great use case for us. Every summer, their midshipmen go on training on different ships all across the world. And that is obviously a logistics nightmare for the human resource folks at the Naval Academy. This this process was previously managed by about 17 different spreadsheets. We were able to help them out with the product that you just saw on the slide previously. Take all of those different data feeds, push them into one automated process so that they can get one report of the truth where all of their midshipmen are, so they can make the best decisions on how to train our the next generation of our naval officers. Next slide. So just real quick, the products that you'll see today first is Monarch. It's our desktop self-service data prep product. It allows you to take data from virtually any type of source. One of our separators in the marketplace, again, is our ability to deal with multi-structured, unstructured data sets, one of which you'll see today. Another big part of this product that's very valuable is data lineage via what we call a change history. So you have full auditability of what's happening to the data. So you could have 17 different data sources and 1,000 different things happening to them, and somebody can easily understand 1 to 1,000 what has happened to the data. So complete data lineage, and there's an element of governance that obviously leads to. Next slide. Altair Knowledge Hub is essentially the product that you just saw, Monarch, but it's available in the browser. It can be deployed in the cloud or on-prem, and it also has a collaborative mechanism that allows for enterprise usage. So you can share models with other folks, you can comment on models, and it really creates a data marketplace of not only raw data sets, but the actual models, exports, and commentary on top of those models as well. Next slide. Knowledge Studio is our advanced analytics product that allows folks to do things or use cases that revolve around predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, AI, or machine learning. One of the things you'll see today is our decision tree functionality, which is one of the things that we're known about. Really, this is a product that's built for data analysts all the way to data scientists. But it can really do some advanced things, and it is more of an advanced product that is meant for data scientists. And one of the other things I will mention is it can integrate with R and Python code. So if you already have some code that you want to, just use within this product and integrate, that's totally fine. We can import and export R and Python code, so fully integratable in that aspect. Next slide. The last product I'll talk about is our visualization product called Panopticon. It not only allows you to build visuals on top of static data, but something that's very special about this particular product is its ability to sit on top of actual real-time streaming data. What I mean by that is message buses, tick databases, sensors, things like that, fast-moving data down to the nanosecond, so we can see the anomalies and make the decisions as fast as possible. This product is actually very well used across the financial markets, on Wall Street, on the trade desks. You can imagine, obviously, the data moves fast in that realm. But that is all for me. In terms of slides, I'm going to hand it over to James, and hopefully you guys will like what you see live.
Thank you, Dan. Today, we'll be taking a look at a few use cases, and we will see how Altair's Knowledge Works suite of products is used to leverage or turn hard-to-read documents into meaningful reports and models. So the first product, again, we're going to be taking a look at is going to be Monarch Complete version 15.5. We are currently viewing the initial user interface, so let's take a quick look at all the compatible data sources within Monarch. Scrolling from the top to bottom, we see that we have the ability to upgrade any previously built out models to the latest version of Monarch. Then we get into our semi-structured documents. These are going to be our PDF and text reports that we're looking to get into that structure, which is going to be our spreadsheets, right? Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets. Maintaining that structure, we can pull from a variety of different databases. It's worth noting we're not limited to this list due to our ODBC and OLEDB connectivity. We can then pull data from different application sources, as well as a variety of different big data sources. And Monarch can even pull native tables from websites. So the first use case that we'll be looking at deals with social media data and criminal investigation. I'll pull the PDF on screen so we could take a look at the actual data we're going to be working with. So just starting from the top, this is a semi-structured PDF document. And this is the same format that Facebook would deliver if the FBI or the DOJ were to subpoena your Facebook account. This is a full record of somebody's Facebook account. And we can see the user information right here at the top. Our user is Mr. John Smith. Scrolling down, we're going to see some shifting and changes in the format of the document. We see the different IP addresses here, different login times. As we scroll further on down, we're going to see the different friends of Mr. John Smith, as well as the wall posts. So we are interested in extracting this wall post data and putting it into a usable format of rows and columns. In the past, this process would be very tedious, manually copying and pasting, rekeying all of this data into another platform such as Microsoft Excel. Not only would this process be very time consuming, but you're also at risk of extracting inaccurate data. With Monarch, we have found a better way to quickly and accurately extract this data and put it into the desired format that we are looking for. So I've already built out a model, and I'll go ahead and show you what I mean. I'll click this Prepare tab right here, and we're going to see a blank canvas right in front of us, but we're also going to see some column headers, this change history on the right side, and the presence of our model right here titled Wall Post Info Model. Since this has already been previously built out, I can just go to my File Explorer, wherever that PDF resides, and I can simply drag and drop that into the model. And you can see we are going to automatically populate that table. So what we have built out here is considered a repeatable workspace. Essentially a list of instructions on how to extract the data we are looking for when a PDF of the correct format is dropped into the model. Now, usually the next step for this use case is to bring in another table from a database consisting of a list of known persons of interest and matching that table up with this wall post data to see if the user of the Facebook account, Mr. John Smith, has been in contact with anyone of interest. However, we'd like to demonstrate the next product, Knowledge Hub, how this can be leveraged in a similar manner with some extra aspects of collaboration and governance that Dan just touched on. The first thing we're actually going to do is save this model and send this to my Knowledge Hub account, and we can perform the joining of the table and the database inside of that platform. I do this by going up to the top left corner, saving the workspace into Knowledge Hub, and then I can actually browse for whatever file. I see my folder right here, and I'm just going to go and drop this into my social media folder. As we can see, it's currently empty. I'll just click OK twice. And as you can see, we are now publishing that workspace into Knowledge Hub. So now that we have saved this Monarch desktop model in Hub, we can access this from any browser. This is why we like to say that Knowledge Hub is Monarch in a browser. So I'll go over that right now. Just going to ask me to type in my login credentials. And right away, we can see that the initial user interface looks a little bit different. We have a couple of different windows here.
This first one is just telling me any recent updates that were made. And we can see today at 3:51 p.m., which was just 1 minute ago, we have uploaded this social media demo workspace. I can also see if anything was ever shared with me right here, as well as this activities feed with my team, letting me know if there's been anything imported or exported up to our hub space together. Let's go browse in that library to see where that workspace was dropped. As you can see, I'm clicking into that social media folder and the workspace is present here. I'll click into this and we can see that this is the exact table that we were just viewing inside of Monarch Desktop. So now that we can, now what we're going to want to do is we're going to add that database, right? So I'll click this Add Data button up here at the top, and I'll just browse on my local file. I'll open up this database, and then I'll just save and open it. So now we have a new table consisting of 2 columns, a friend number and a friend name, all in the same workspace with the other table. What we can do here is we can actually transform this with a join. I'll just go ahead and create this join of these 2 tables. And then the next step is to key in on which columns we'd like to match upon. That'll be our friend numbers, basically just our ID numbers. And then I'm going to be left with some different options on what other columns I'd like to bring with me to this next step. I'll bring the wall post text. So what we are doing speaks volumes to the power of Monarch and Knowledge Hub. This ability to join disparate data sources together to create a more refined and meaningful output is something that is difficult to do outside of our platform. I'll click apply. Now we can see just the fact that there's even a table that Mr. John Smith has actually been in contact with some of these people of interest. We can actually see the relationship with, if I click over from the grid to the flow, we can see these 2 tables being joined together to create one table. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan and James, with Altair. That was a great presentation. I enjoyed that very much. And now on to the rest of the program.
Thanks, Tom.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Suter. I'm the founder of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. And we have with us today Kim Davis, Lead Enterprise Agile Architect at ASRC Federal. And she's got a very interesting topic today, which I think is all the more worthy of discussion with the pandemic. How are we doing today, Kim?
I'm great. How are you?
Great, great. Looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Kim Davis with ASRC Federal. And as the Enterprise Agile Architect, my focus is on implementing Agile solutions for both our corporate structure and our government partners to support our program execution needs. So today we'll be talking about how we're applying some of our Devops culture practices in a way that helps us optimize software delivery efficiencies for multi-vendor environments. So to get started, let's talk about what DevOps culture is. So we'll ground ourselves with that first. Of the DevOps competencies, there's 5: culture, automation, lean, monitoring, and recovering. Culture is really the most foundational component. You can have some of these practices in place, but for DevOps to truly exist, the culture is a very foundational component. So what is it? Why is it so important? Basically, it's sharing responsibility and ownership for everything that's required to deliver value. So when you think about how an organization is structured and how we have traditional silos that have specific roles and responsibilities, it's about taking those roles and responsibilities and ensuring that we have the right people in place that are supporting the delivery of value across those silos. So it's everybody coming together to work together, focusing on a similar vision and mission, and supporting that by organizing around this purpose. Within this culture too, the idea is that because we're doing some rapid experimentation, there's a tolerance for failure because we've got the constructs in place to recover quickly. And when we fail, we learn. So there's this motto of fail fast, learn fast. that we truly embrace in this culture, as it supports innovation, which drives us into a better position to meet the needs of the users that we support. This culture also will focus on sharing discoveries, practices, skill sets. We're really focusing on building each other, because people are really the heart of everything that we do. People are on the receiving end, but they're also embedded all over in how we build our software solutions and solutions in general. So that's a big part of how we organically grow skill sets. And it all comes from this concept of DevOps culture. The culture is further extended by leaders who exemplify these things, by an organizational structure that supports it, how we organize around value and mission, and it provides stability from those traditional hierarchies. But when you have an organization that's focused on value, so your cross-cutting silo components, it allows you to be responsive as well. So you've got stability from your traditional hierarchy, coupled with the ability to be increasingly responsive, which is critical for the age of digital disruption that we're in, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So here we are today. And in the age of digital disruption that I mentioned that we're in, it's becoming more and more important for government agencies to find some of the flexibility that they need. And in some cases, they can find this with securing multiple vendors. For example, if a certain mission requires cyber, digital operations, and cloud expertise, agile and application development, plus microservices, they may not be able to find that from one vendor, so they better position themselves to go with a few. So the age of digital disruption that creates this need for flexibility is given and due to the fact that we've got these constant emergent new needs. And with that, we're always having a need to respond faster and faster. So we have to be able to keep up with the pace. As things are changing and new technologies are emerging to support what we build, we also need increased flexibility and modularity in the services and solutions that we're providing. That way, as things change, we're in a better position to adapt from a cost and schedule efficiency perspective. So when we find these situations where it's best to have multiple vendors to provide all those skill sets we need to meet the user demands, we have to consider DevOps culture and the human factors that come into play with that. In some cases, we've seen these situations where we've got multiple vendors and they're all working on the same need, but they're off executing in their own silos. And they may occasionally converge to integrate or collaborate on some need, but it's not regular and not enough as it doesn't create what the benefits of DevOps culture does. Some of those things being that increased skill set and more alignment and gaining efficiencies from increased collaboration and reducing variability. So those are some of the challenges that we face in this environment where we've got multiple vendors and we haven't quite built in that cultural factor yet. So what we've done to address some of that is create what we call a badgeless society. And the idea is that no matter what company you support and what badge you wear, we are all there for one purpose. And that purpose is to meet the needs, the vision, the mission of the agencies that we're supporting. And we have to recognize the importance of the differences that we come into this picture with. Each vendor has a deep level of subject matter expertise. And when we combine that, we will encounter increased skill set sharing, which will bolster the whole team over time. So it's important to maintain that subject matter expertise, but it's also important to share those skill sets so that we can converge on a more unified approach, more cohesive way of finding ideas, and skill set and tool sharing over time. So what we have seen with our Badgeless Society is that it really anchors the key concepts of DevOps culture. And that comes with our shared ownership, regardless of what you're an expert in and what badge you're wearing. It also supports the need for cross-training so that we can converge and be one unified group and operate as one large team instead of in our silos based on who we work for. A major benefit is that we're not just handing off responsibility from vendor to vendor or pieces of work from vendor to vendor. Those silos are greatly reduced, which greatly increases efficiencies just due to general collaboration. Also, just a reduction in conflict. This becomes a community, and a community where there are passionate practitioners working together to meet those goals. Alignment is huge. Alignment in terms of efficiencies across multiple vendors and multiple cultures that have come together to form one is very important to make sure that everybody's marching to the same beat. And with that comes decreased variability, where in cases where we haven't created this badgeless society and the vendors are off operating in their own silos, they're off using their own approaches and their own ideas. So you instantly start with a greater amount of variability. So creating this culture where they can work together greatly drives that out over time. And it's important because we're working together to learn what that variability is. And as a team, we're working on reducing it ourselves. So it's a bit more of an organic approach. Now, where we've seen this successful is in a couple of our programs, but here are two examples that we wanted to cite today. In the first example, we have a sub to prime relationship where we implemented Scaled Agile several years ago. And at first, we organized our Agile release trains around the two companies, the sub and the prime. And this honestly increased the amount of handoffs that we had because it became more rigidly defined and segregated. And when you have more handoffs, you're likely to increase your lead time. And that also resulted in decreased collaboration and finger pointing. So people were like, why are we even doing this? So what we really needed to do was get back to the basics and focus on our culture. And we reorganized our release trains to be more cross-functional across both companies. So in this example, the prime was focused on the systems engineering and the level 3 and 4 test elements, while the sub was focused on the software development and level 1 and 2 test elements. So combining the two organizations really created threads of value from a capability standpoint in which they were delivering. And it drastically increased the amount of coordination that we had and really enabled us to drive faster design and development decisions, which was critical given the pace at which this program needed to respond and provide value and be informed in making the right decisions too. In the other example, we've got a multi-vendor environment where teams were initially organized into one Agile release train by vendor. So it was just teams organized by the company they work for. And what happened was at first they had a lot of differing opinions on approach. They were not sharing skill sets. There was a ton of handoffs because they wanted to use different environments. And overall collaboration was not great. And it created a lot of finger pointing. Again, once we introduced this concept of a badgeless society, we basically created teams that were a mix of all the vendors, and they were organized around the domains that they were intended to deliver value to, because there was some independence there, and that was the method that made the most sense. So what happened was the coordination hugely increased, which supported alignment back to the overall mission. Knowledge sharing was a big deal there. They all came with various different skill sets. So the ability to share that with other people that you don't work with necessarily on a day-to-day basis because you wear a different badge made a big difference. And over time, instead of having multiple environments where they were working in, they decided that it was best to converge on one, which supported efficiencies from an automation standpoint. So in each case, and in every case that we've applied this to, the benefits from the cultural standpoint were all tied back to creating delivery efficiencies. So people and processes and tools are really the heart of what we do, and they're a big part of how we develop culture. So creating this for them and leading by example and how you want this culture to operate, tying that to your greater purpose, is a huge way to create your badgeless society.
Thank you, Kim. That was a great presentation, and be sure to visit her in the virtual booth. She will be present there. And that was Kim Davis, Lead Enterprise Agile Architect at ASRC Federal, and enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you.